your host, and today I am very pleased to be sitting here with Delegate Regina T. Boyce from the 43rd District in Baltimore. So, Regina, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, wonderful. So, the first thing that I really like to do with folks who sit in my chair is have you tell us a little bit about you. So, walk us through your resume.
Well, thank you. My resume. So, currently, I'm the director of an adult education program in Baltimore City where we see about 600 adults a year for adult basic education. So that's pre-literacy, pre-GED, GED, as well as English language learners. So individuals who need to learn English at the beginning level, intermediate, and to the high level, which is essentially what we call civics. People need to understand our government, they need to understand our customs, they need to understand how they assimilate in this new country. And so we provide all of those skills and those classes to those individuals 3 times a year at so many instructional hours so that they get the gains that they want. Adult education is hugely important. Before that, I worked for the City Council President for 5 years as a community liaison in Northeast, where I really learned a lot more about Baltimore City, and at the same time earned my master's in public administration from UB. And before that, I worked at Johns Hopkins University Athletic Department for 10 years. In my undergraduate degree, I'm a kinesiology major. Every time I say that, people say, well, that's that. It's
Touch, right? Touch?
Yes, the study of human movement, right? And so I wanted to be a sports psychologist. It was a new discipline, and I went to school and I did it, and then I was just like, I'm not sure about the master's part of this, which really included a lot of anatomy and physiology. But I always say how I got here into this seat right now is that I took advantage of a program. I bought a house in the city, and then from that moment it was like, oh, you know, you're in a community, you're supposed to be involved. I got involved quickly. I always say I got involved in my association because the whole board quit the first 6 months that I was actually going, and then, you know, got to understand like grassroots level organization, leading a community organization, leading, being on boards, understanding liquor laws and how you fight liquor laws and how you fight bad housing and how you do all these things at the community level that so many communities fight for. And then again from there, of course, I moved to the City Council President's office. Then from there, I moved to where I am now with Strong City Baltimore as their director of adult education. And so yeah, so yeah.
So you kind of got a tutelage through just living in your education for that has kind of positioned you. But what interested you in politics, though?
I would have to say none. I never. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, I would have told you, heck no, are you crazy? Absolutely not. But what I do know is that I have always loved serving people. I've always liked working on people's behalf. And when I worked for the Baltimore City Council President's office, I loved that job. I loved being with community. I loved being with people. I loved hearing their concerns. I loved celebrating with them. I loved fighting with them. I loved finding answers for them when they'd be like, Regina, like, this seems so easy for you. You know how long I've been trying to just get an answer for this, and really just being truly a public servant, being that real mediator in my role as a liaison between the city and the community, and always trying to work to get that win for them or give them more information that they didn't have. You know, they thought a process was this way that seemed more complicated, and I say, no, it's actually this way. And they're like, you know, I didn't know that. So really being informative and teaching people about what's happened in our city, how it happens, and how they can, of course, be a part of that. And so I really enjoy doing that, and I feel like now in this role, I get to do that at even a greater level.
So you weren't interested.
No.
But you liked helping people connect dots.
Absolutely.
And understand process and procedure.
Absolutely.
So now how'd you get to here?
I had to be asked.
You had to be
Somebody asked me. Someone asked me. Someone recommended my name, and they were like, oh, someone suggested you to run for the State Central Committee. And I said, You know, I was in my work with adult education. I was like, I'm a little apathetic. I'm really upset, and I'm mad at this, and I'm mad at that, and and I was like, you know what? then maybe you should do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're the ones that we've been waiting for. And then I said, well, if I'm going to do state central committee, I said, I might as well do it, right? Like I've done the work in so many ways, I might as well do it.
Right.
And then I did it, and then there was no turning back. I was like, oh my God.
Stuck the toe in, and then the whole body.
Then it was in it, and then it was like, oh, and it was logos and colors and pictures, and before I knew it, I was in it, and I said, there we go. And sometimes I think it's the Eleanor Roosevelt comment that sometimes the very thing that we must do is sometimes the things that we don't want to do.
Well, that's right.
And, or that we say we don't want to do, but then, so here I am.
And here you are. So then it begs this question.
It begs it.
Why do you want to be here?
I want to be here because I believe that people trust me.
Mm-hmm.
They trust me to, and I think that's what's most important about this position is being somebody that people know that they can trust,
Yes.
that they can count on, even in the worst situations, and maybe it doesn't go their way, that they can have the transparency and the access that they want, and I think I can be that. I think I am a solutions person. I think I'm a good listener. I think I'm someone who can hear all sides and defend all sides and still feel like with good discernment that I can help us come up with what's right. That's sometimes not what's necessarily popular, sometimes not necessarily what this side wants or that side, but what is right? What is right? Because at the end of the day, what we do and the decisions we make always impact the least of these. And how can we make the best decisions so that we are all benefited and that we are not also hurting people? And so, we get calls now about bills and what we do and how we do, and I have to tell people you have to look at it all. Because, we do it one way this way, someone gets hurt. We do it some way and this way, someone gains too much. And so how do we look at it all so that we do what is right all the time?
Excellent. Excellent. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Her Voice. I'm Jules Dunham-Howie, your host, and today we're here with Delegate Regina T. Boyce, who is the representative from the 43rd District in Baltimore. And so tell me, Delegate Boyce, what has been one of your most important accomplishments? That could be in your work, in education, or...
I think one of my accomplishments is that I had the opportunity and still have the opportunity to be a director and to lead, and understanding after you have been under certain leaderships and management, you kind of get an idea of how you want to lead and how people want to be led. And I think for me right now is being that type of leader, being a leader right now where I am director of an all-woman staff right now, which means I have the ability to say, oh, the kid's sick, okay, you can work from home, all these things, and I can make those accommodations, like for women and women's issues, because we are the head of our households. We tend to make all the financial decisions and the life decisions and the who's taking care of the parents' decisions, and so can be a leader in that regard and lead the way of saying, what does it really look like for people to like where they work and to lead where they work, where they're not only getting some flexibility, but also that, they say most people stay in their job not necessarily because of the job, it's somewhat because of leadership. And how can I be a good leader where people invest their time and their talents and their idea in a space because we've made it a space where there's flexibility, where ideas are offered up and heard sincerely, and also giving credit. It's like being a leader doesn't mean that I'm the big bad boss. It means that I am the coordinator, I am the collaborator, I am the one that says it's time for you to be lifted up. It's time for you to present that idea. Also creating leaders, and so I think proud that I had have that opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Because, leadership is also about courage. Like, what are you willing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you willing to break the mold? And
Absolutely.
I think for me that's important, because then it helps you also be able to also get along with people better, how to support people better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that would be it for me.
So tell me this, what is your area of passion in the legislature? What are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about many things. Working in adult education, the one thing that I've learned is that when people do not learn, they don't earn. When people don't have a sufficient education, it stunts them and stops them. When people don't speak English at a certain level, it stunts them and stops them. And as we saw, today we talked about Kerwin, and why that is so important is because when you don't have a foundational education,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot move on for life. We just fought for 15, which will, $15 an hour will happen in about 6 years, but the reality is are we continuing, whether it's through public schools, through our workforce programs, through adult education, giving people the skills they need to be successful,
Yes.
to be able to earn on their own and above minimum wage? Are we giving them the skill that they can move on to vocation? They can go on to college. They can go on to be successful artists and musicians. But when we don't do that at the basic level, we are the ones who don't enable people to be able to move on, to be self-sufficient, to be able to take care of their families, you know what I mean, to be able to live out their dreams. And so education is very important to me. I'm actually on the Environment and Transportation Committee, which has been, and on the Environment and Natural Resources Subcommittee. And I'm learning so much. I've always been somewhat of an environmental advocate, but more so now it's like, oh, wow, like I thought I knew this much, but now it's this much more, and it's really a blessing, because, environmental issues tend to impact people of low income, low means, and of color. And here I can be a woman of color in this environment that tends not to look like me, but will advocate for issues that disproportionately impact people who look like me. And so it's been good. It's been really
So
interesting.
tell me, I want to build on that.
Yeah.
Tell me, what change are you looking to make through the legislature around the environment? What are y'all trying to do?
So we're doing so many things right now. The big thing right now is the bay and oysters, and how do we repopulate the Chesapeake Bay with oysters, while at the same time assuring that we have enough at the same time for the watermen, people who make their absolutely on oysters, to have that. So depleting and replenishing all at the same time, while also cleaning up the bay. Looking at trash. How do we dispose of our trash? Getting rid of banning, for instance, we're in the process of trying to ban polystyrene, and in this kind of first stage of the disposable items, the things that we see on our streets, the things that get into our storm drains, the things that get into our waterways.
Yeah.
How do we cut down the reduction of things that we so easily throw away that ends up less in our systems and less in our waters? And those are the things, those are practical things that we can do at the basic level. The banning of certain materials, the recycling of other materials, the composting of food scraps, which some counties do and some places do. And so again, how are we reducing, people talk about trash and litter, but there has to be a reduction of the things that we most often throw away in order to get the reduction on the other end of pollution and litter and the things that we find in the bay, and the things that are harming our fishery life, or harming, for instance, oysters.
Yes.
They say oysters, all these things I'm learning, one oyster filters about 50 gallons of water. Now, the more we have, the more filtration we will have, but then at the same time cutting down on what then goes into the bay at the same time. So all of these things have to happen.
It's an ecosystem.
It is an ecosystem.
Does it all have to connect, right?
Yeah, and then how are you doing all these things like all at the same time to make the effect? So it's quite interesting. I mean, it's quite interesting.
Well, what are we going to do about plastic bags?
Well, I hope at some point we will get rid of it. I think what usually happens, what I see often, is that we don't make certain policy changes because we say it affects a certain group of individuals.
In
and
a
on one
negative
hand,
way.
in a negative way.
That's what we
And
said.
in one ways,
It's
it
true.
does, but you look at other models where people are already paying either for a plastic bag, or you have to buy, the store has to offer a recyclable bag. In other words, when it gets into the landfill, it will somehow biodegrade in a way that's not as harmful. Looking at reusable bags, I mean, everywhere you go, you get a reusable bag. And somewhat taking, in this work, taking the stigma or the blame off of poor people, which always happens. We say what poor people can't do, but really, I mean, I come from an immigrant family. You know, we were poor. Poor meant you were resourceful. It meant that, you know, you found a way to do things that traditionally you could not do because of a lack of resources. So to say that poor people can't, when I think poor people are not stupid people. We treat them as if they're, you know, less money means less of a mind, less of an education, less of creative and critical thinking, and that is not true. And so we have to think about things in a way that says, okay, how is this really hurting people versus saying we can't do this because they can't. You haven't asked the they.
And you haven't provided the resources.
There you
Because
go.
if you provided everybody with, you know, with the recyclable bags.
Or the carts that your grandmama and mama used to drag to the
Look,
store.
I
Come
know
on.
that's right.
Come with it. Come with it.
We
So
had
we
them
can do
carts.
all things. I think we need to, when people say we can't because of this group of people, it's like, well, actually, I talked to those group of people and they say, it's not that bad. Because really, those bags, they're cheap and they fall apart. I went to San Diego for the first time, California ever, first time I've ever been there.
Yeah.
2 years ago, and I stayed in the Gaslight District, and I just kind of walked around, and I walked this place, and I stopped at a natural food store, and it was like 10 or 20 cents to buy the bag. Jules, I still have both those bags. That is how thick they are.
Oh, wow.
They are so thick, and they tell you to reuse them for the store. They tell them to reuse them for anything else, but they are not those cheap grocery store bags that, you know, the once you put something in it, it slices open. I still have those bags. So again,
there you go.
you know, it's doable. We just have to have the will to
The
do
mindset
it.
change,
You
that
know?
mindset change.
You
Well, we're
know?
going to keep working on it,
Yes,
right?
we are. Yes, we are.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back. My name is Jules Dunham Howie, and you're here watching Her Voice. And today we're with Delegate Regina T. Boyce from the 43rd District in Baltimore. Now, Regina, you're new to the legislature, so this is your first year in. Now, tell me, what are you learning about bipartisanship? Because we're in a time where there's just been so much gnashing of teeth between the parties. But can bipartisanship work?
I think it can. You have to find people who really maybe have a similar issue than you. So I'm finding that even on my own committee, you've got like Republicans who they definitely vote their way, and of course us Democrats vote our way, but then there's like this one or two Republicans who have this topic, and I'm interested in that topic too, and they're interested in advancing that topic, and it's like, okay, that's the thing that we can work on together because we have some commonality. But what this legislature is really about is getting to know people in relationships. And you can't have that bipartisanship if you don't know the person, if you don't know what their interests are, if you don't know what their experiences are, to be able to get to that point. And I think there's some people who would say, ooh, Republican, I don't even talk to them. I was like, oh no, I want to talk to them. I want to burn a hole in their ear.
Good.
I want to know everything about them because there is a commonality outside of party. We are people. We have experiences. We come from unique backgrounds. We have many things in common. If we can put that aside momentarily to figure out, you know, who we are to each other and our experiences, I think we can find that commonality. Who's willing to do that?
Now, I hope you all heard what the delegate just said. She said that there is a need to get to know people who have differences than we do.
Yes.
And I'm happy to hear you say
Absolutely.
that, because I sometimes feel as though we've lost all civility in this country.
Yes, we have.
And there used to be a time where decorum was everything.
Oh, yes.
And that we prided ourselves on the fact that we had enough reverence for the position.
Yes.
That we were able to say, in this role, I know I have to be able to have these hard conversations.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, too. We have to be willing to have hard conversations. We've been having them last week, as you see. We're going to continue to have them. But if you cannot sit down and have a hard discussion, we can never get to the good solutions.
Yeah.
And I want to get to the good and healthy and productive solutions. But you have to be willing to have the conversation, which means you might have to hear things that, they may hurt, but again, like, it's the discourse that gets us to the solutions that we need for the people in this state, and be the leaders in the state that end up leading the country. And so I think it's important. My family is from the Caribbean, and so I've always grown up being the different girl within Black community.
Wow.
And still somehow different because we weren't, and so I pride differences. I want to know. I want to know. So, somebody's scared of that person, I'm talking to them. I want to know everything about them.
So Caribbean where?
So my mother is Jamaican and my father was from Barbados.
Oh, get out of here.
Yes.
My Nana's from Barbados. So
Oh.
the Bajan blood, yes,
We
indeed.
might be related.
You never know. It's a beautiful,
It
beautiful
is.
country. So, all right, let's keep going, though.
Yes.
Now, what do you think are the biggest opportunities for Baltimore over the next 5 years? What do you think?
I think the Kerwin Commission, the Innovation of Education Excellence, is huge. We need to start producing competitive and competent students, so that we then put out to not only Maryland but to the world and the country individuals who can say they came from here and they got this public school education because we've actually made the investment in our children to do so. This is not only about a good education, but a good education not only on the local market but on the global market.
Oh, okay.
We have to compete globally.
Yeah,
And I think Kerwin is really attacking that, not just the concentrations of poverty, but yes, how do I get this person to the academic career that they want? How do I get this person to the vocational career they want? How can I get this artist to be the best artist that they can do? It creates all of those things. I like to say STEAM all the time: science, technology, engineer, athletics, arts, and mathematics. I think it's all well-rounded, and I think Kerwin Commission is going to be able to push that envelope. I think we have that's the biggest opportunity for Maryland, because then you will start seeing, as we create these kind of 21st century amazing students, because they're already amazing, and that's the thing that they need to know. We need to make the investment in them so that they continue to know and they go on to be great. And I think that's going to then bring back those 21st century jobs, those 21st century industry to coming here, because they're going to say, what? The talent is in Baltimore City because the state has made the investment for our kids. And so I think that is one of the biggest concerns in adult education. We say children who have parents who have not completed high school 48% of their time will not complete high school themselves. And so if we start early, as we see, we're going to start with universal kind of a pre-K for 4, and those who are 3, who come from low-income families, start them there, because the earlier they start, the greater they finish.
It's the truth. It's true.
And so it is. I think that's one of the biggest opportunities that we can have.
So I like this STEAM, because arts and athletics, if you look at the research, which I'm sure you have, when you are athletic or when you are dealing with the arts, it actually spurs things that directly connect you to be able to excel with the science, technology, and the math. They really do work together.
Yeah, and it's strategy. It's, you're on
Creativity.
It's problem solving at its best. You're on the field, you're a soccer player, you got to make decisions.
Yes,
Decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're an artist, you get to just create things out of the blue and say, this is what this is and this is what this is. So it's a balance, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's a balance because we can create scientists, but we also want scientists who love the arts or paints or sings. Or, you know,
That's
you know,
right.
you
That's
need a
exactly
balance,
right.
and I think
That's
the more
exactly
balanced our kids are, the more, again, they have to do.
Well, I want our viewers to get to know a little nugget about you
Yes.
that nobody knows. So,
Well, it's a lot.
I want you to tell me, who is your personal hero?
You know, the women in my family are my personal heroes. I mentioned before my parents. I'm essentially I'm American first and foremost, but first generation Caribbean American. And so my grandmother has brought my father and my aunts and my mom here in the early 70s. And they are the strongest women that I know. People always say, well, you're so strong. As but my mom is strong and my grandmom's so strong. Everybody is strong, and I get that strength for them because there have been times when we've had adversities, and it really takes a strong woman to lead a family through hard times. And seeing my mom take care of us despite, you know, a dad who decides that, oh, we're divorced, so I'm just not going to, you know, do anything. And so really understanding struggle, understanding resources, understanding how to use those resources, but most importantly, how to carry on.
Yeah.
How to move forward in spite of forgetting those things that are behind and pushing forward. And so I think the strong Caribbean women in my family for that.
Well, that is wonderful. So it is time for us to go already.
Yeah.
You see, the time
The
flies
time
when you have a
flies.
wonderful delegate in the chair.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Jules.
it has been so good to be with you,
Yes.
Regina T. Boyce.
That's right.
And so I am appreciative for you coming out.
Thank you for having me.
And I want our viewers to know that Regina T. Boyce, your delegate, is always willing to hear from you.
Always.
So if you have an issue or concern, please make sure that you reach out to her if you're in the 43rd District, because I know that she has ears to hear. So.
And as well as a Facebook page and a Twitter and an Instagram. But I always like to hear what people have to say and why they say what they say, because everybody's opinion matters because it's based on their experience.
Thank you for being with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for joining us. I'm Jules Dunham Howie, and I have been honored to be here today with Delegate Regina T. Boyce. We'll see you next time on Her Voice.